So John Brennan, you work for the Last Drive-In. Um, you have various titles, right? I was watching one show and Joe Bob was like, "What are his titles now?" So what's the gamut of things you do
Yeah, I
there?
kind of do a little bit of just like in Trauma, which sort of the last drive is somewhat of an extension of Trauma because the people who produced it started at Trauma, and that's where I met them. Now it's not a Trauma production, but it definitely has the DNA because it's guys who started at Trauma who went on to do this show. The producers Justin Martell and Matt Mancherides. And when I first got involved, the first thing that I heard was, "Hey, listen, we have this show coming up. Joe Bob Briggs, we're going to resurrect him." I was amazed because I used to watch him all the time, and I loved it, Monster Vision. I even used to watch him on the movie channel before that as a really small kid, and I was ecstatic. But they said, "Would you like to try to throw in a demo for the theme song?" Sure. Absolutely, I would love that because "Tearing the Heart Out of Saturday Night" is one of the greats, in my opinion. And unfortunately, they couldn't find the rights, or they couldn't find the guy who wrote it. There was at the time they just couldn't get the rights to it. So I did something that I felt was in the same feel of that song, but to me, it was Muppets were singing in celebration of Joe Bob Briggs returning. So in my mind, the opening would have been a graveyard next to a drive-in, and in the graveyard were all these like zombie Muppets, mummy Muppets, werewolf Muppets, the Universal monsters essentially, singing in celebration that Joe Bob is coming back to the drive-in next door to the graveyard. And they didn't have the budget for that, but the song, they liked it. I mean, 24 hours after I sent them the demo, they approved it, which to me was the first and only time that something was so creatively easy and then easy to get placed. And it's just since then, it's been such a glory to be involved in the show. So then through that, they something happened where Shutter cut the budget for the show, the very first marathon. So we had to sort of scramble Trauma style to do it, and they asked me to come on as like a production manager slash, just basically utility guy. I do everything from help build the sets to do the paperwork to then eventually I started acting in the show as well. So I was just there because I was a fan and because I was willing to work cheap. And Joe Bob, I guess, took a liking to me after we did in the first marathon, we did the show Legend of Boggy Creek, and I got to
Yes.
sing a song with him and this guy Lyle Blackburn from the Legend of Boggy Creek. And Joe Bob loved the way that went, so he just was like, "Yeah, we're going to do more of these." And a lot of times when people say that, it doesn't happen. They promise something, but Joe Bob kept his word, and I got to keep working on the show as far as like a creative.
So
So
that's amazing. Yeah. So yeah, multiple titles, right? I mean,
yeah, so I'm actually officially, so I'm the music supervisor. I'm also a cast member, a part-time cast member. I'm also the production manager now. I used to be the production coordinator because we had another production manager, but then they changed his title for some reason. So now I'm the production manager. But on top of that, I also go and I get the catering stuff. Like
yeah,
I'll go and
yeah.
shop for that, or if they need a run to Walmart or whatever it is, I'm willing to do anything. I don't care because it's such a great experience to be there. And I'd rather do something than sit on a set. I feel like there's a lot of people who, once they get onto a set, feel like they've earned the right to just sit around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not everybody. I mean, there's a lot of people who are great, great, great workhorses, and they want to do the work. But to me, I've never wanted to sit on a set. I want to be active. So if I do have the downtime, it's like, give me something to do. I'm willing. So I just I sort of like forced my way into doing multiple things.
That's great, man. Congrats. I truly got a kick out of seeing you on the show, and then because we had met at Trauma when I was delivering the VHS Massacre films and stuff like that. You were always really nice, which I appreciated, and and just to see you on the show, I was like I don't know. It was just very cool. It was. It felt like somehow like a victory for all the little guys, the independent filmmakers. You know.
Thank you for saying that. It was to me, like I said, the Last Drive-In has been such a natural and easy thing to do for me personally, just because Joe Bob's really, he's a genius and he's very generous. He's a one-take wonder, I might say. And for a guy like that, similarly with Lloyd Kaufman, to say, hey, you do this, you do that, will you come along and work on my stuff with me is sort of amazing, because I felt like I was ready to give up and become a janitor again, because I was a janitor for a long time, and now that this stuff is going on, I'm starting to second guess that maybe I'll become a janitor later on, maybe in my 60s or something. I'll give this a little more of a shot. But yeah, and again, like with Austin Jennings, the director, Justin Martell, the producer, Matt Mandrini's the producer, just to give me that shot is amazing. So I'm going to continue. There's a couple of songs this season that I feel like are absolutely going to be the best ones yet. I wish I could tell you what they were, but all I can say is I'm ready to do the best work I've ever done.
Oh, great. No, I can't wait. I love the Madman. The Madman one was ridiculous.
That one was a huge surprise, because I guess I could tell the story now. They shot Mad Men as an extra thing because there was one movie where they weren't sure whether or not they were going to get the rights for the Thanksgiving marathon. I think it was The Hills Have Eyes. There was something up in the air with the rights for that. So they said, you know what, we're going to do the commentary anyway, and if we don't get it, we'll do it during the season, and we'll switch Madman out. And there was like a hole. There was like, because it hadn't been fully fleshed out yet, and there was a few places where there needed to be a little more padding for time. And Justin Martell suggested, he's like, why don't we get John to have an acoustic guitar and just play the Madman theme? And then Joe Bob's like, that's great. We'll turn it into a round. And, so we did the row, row, row your boat thing, where it's like he comes in, I come in, and it just worked. And we nailed it in one take. I hit those notes. I was really nervous to hit the high notes.
Yes, it's just awesome, though.
I was so nervous. But thankfully with his, he's just ready to do anything.
I mean, you're not kidding when you say like he is a genius. Like he was, I was just going down a YouTube hole, and I came across him giving a Google talk on Iridium cell phones. He'd written a book.
Oh yeah.
He'd written a book, like some crazy book about the history of cell phone technology, and
he's as John Bloom. Hasn't he written like books on physics and stuff like that? I mean, he really gets into the science and things like that, which to me is amazing. Like the guy doesn't just know music; he's also into all sorts of other stuff.
Yeah. I was surprised. But
which, by the way, he's right behind me. There he is, Mr. Joe Bob Briggs.
Joe Bob Briggs. So you had done your own previous to The Last Drive-In. You had worked on your own music, and you were you playing out and doing albums and stuff like that previous to
yeah, I like, much like Kevin MacLeod, I almost do music as it was just a hobby. I never really thought that I would make it in the industry or anything like that. I used to just make music. Remember when we had DV cams? Mm-hmm. I had an XL1 with a great mic on it, and I figured out that if I recorded different layers and put it in Final Cut, edit the music that way, and then export it to a WAV, I could make my own album. So in the early 2000s, I started experimenting with sounds and stuff like that. And since then, I think I've recorded over 400 songs.
Wow.
So, I mean, not all of them are good. Trust me, there's some really bad clunkers in there. But that practice and it was just a love of doing it, helped me get better and better at home recording, to the point where I was able to provide stuff for The Last Drive-In that was professional sounding enough. But trust me, it took over a decade to get there. I mean, I probably started home recording in like the year 2000, and 2018 was the first time that I ever did something that was commercially viable. So it took me about 18 years to get there, and I guess that's that Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours thing, where if you do something for long enough, it will start to sound pretty decent or professional. And yeah, that's the way I got there. It was just a lot of that. I mean, I had bands throughout the years, but they were never anything that got any sort of, full on success. I mean, we were successes within the shows and stuff that we did, the concerts or whatever, but never beyond just a couple of shows here and there.
Yeah, but now you got you have a vinyl album, right?
Oh yeah. So Ship to Shore Phono Co. This was just an amazing part of what came along with the last drive-in, was that I was able to put my stuff out on vinyl, and now we're up to, I think we're up to our 5th release, and that's coming soon, and then we have another plan for another release after the next season. So just the fact that my work is out there on vinyl is something that I never even dreamed was possible. So I guess if I had any advice to somebody who was like sort of trying to come up in the music industry, is just keep doing it. Yeah. Don't worry about a big payday. Don't worry about any sort of thing. Just anytime that you have some time, even if you're working full time, just take that hour, make the music, and it will pay off eventually. Somebody will hear it if it's decent sounding enough, and it'll get you someplace.
That reminds me of Lloyd Kaufman. Would you be willing to talk about Shitstorm at all?
Yeah, I'll talk about anything, man. Even the people I hate, I'll talk about them. Let's go.
Give me it all. No,
I'll give it all. So Lloyd Kaufman, Shakespeare Shitstorm. That was another amazing opportunity because I went to Troma sort of not thinking that I was going to make movies there. I just wanted to meet people, really. I just wanted to network and see what I can do, because I came from LA sort of having been almost like a failure. I wanted to write screenplays, and that's the only single-minded thing that I had in my 20s was I just want to write, which was a huge mistake. I should have gone and been PA and just met people, and through that, it would have helped me. And that proved itself correct when I got to Troma, and I started meeting all these people. I mean, I got the last drive-in because of Troma, and then I got to make an actual movie with Lloyd Kaufman. The thing about Lloyd, there's never a dull moment. I mean, every single day at Troma, I laughed a belly laugh, because Lloyd is like the funniest guy ever. But on top of that, Lloyd is a valuable person to know, because he is generous with his time and he's generous with his resources. He may not pay the best, but his wealth of knowledge is worth every penny that you get through him. It's like he taught me how to make a movie from the very inception of the idea all the way through the last seconds of post-production. And that's like an invaluable thing. So I would recommend to anyone who's in a local in the New York area, intern at Troma, or no, they don't call it interns anymore. They're observer volunteers.
Nice.
So
Nice.
I would recommend it because the Shakespeare Shitstorm, I had co-produced Return to Nukem High Volume 2, and they had shot about 40% of that movie. And then the other 60% we sort of faked in the Troma basement, etc. But with the Shakespeare Shitstorm, we wanted to go bigger. We wanted to do something that was on a scale that hadn't been in a Troma movie since the 80s, probably. And that's when we brought in Justin Martell of The Last Drive-In to come and help us produce. He got Albania involved. We're the first American production that ever shot in Albania.
Nice.
And we had the use of the like huge boats and military boats and this and that and the other thing. It was crazy. So it added such a huge production value to our movie. And while they were out in Albania shooting that stuff on a boat, I was here in New York sort of getting the rest of it together. And I think, personally, it's the best Troma movie in a very long time. I love the other movies like Poltergeist. I love Return to Nukem High Volume 1 and 2. But there's something about Shakespeare's Shitstorm that it's almost like back to the classical way of filmmaking that was Tromeo and Juliet. As classical as Tromeo and Juliet is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's still Troma. I mean, there's still whales shitting on pharmaceutical people. But
right.
But there is it's a literary thing. Lloyd's going back to the bard, and I know for a fact that he's always wanted to make The Tempest, even before Tromeo and Juliet. So this is almost like a lifelong goal fulfilled for Lloyd, and I'm really excited for people to see it. I do think that there are some moments that will prove to be problematic with a certain type of person.
Right.
But look, it's Troma. It's equal opportunity offender. In 1 minute he'll offend a Republican, and the next minute he'll offend a Democrat. It doesn't matter. Lloyd, there's no quarter with Lloyd Kaufman. If he feels like, if he smells your bullshit, he's going after you. So,
yeah, I think he's an important figure, because I think you need people like that to take the piss out of other people. You need that court jester type to try to should be able to make fun of anyone. And
absolutely,
it's important to society. I think more than people think about it. I think it's actually really important.
It is, because what movie are you going to get that's a bawdy comedy that also touches upon things like the dangers of big pharma, or the dangers of mob justice on social media, the dangers of Return to Nukem High Volume 1 and 2, as ridiculous as they are, they're about the horrible, horrible food that we feed our children in schools.
Right.
That's the basis of what he wanted to make that movie about.
Yeah.
And there's always a message with Lloyd. So I feel like we nailed this one.
I can't wait. Cannot wait to see it.